this video we're going to be looking at how we can create perfect half lap joints on your table saw. So the first thing we need to do before we start cutting half lap joints is determine the height of our blade. So the height of the blade should be half the thickness of the workpiece that you're going to be using. My workpiece that I'm going to demonstrate with here is 32 millimeters. So the height of my blade needs to be 16 millimeters. A couple of ways you can do that. You could put a mark on your workpiece at the halfway point. So I've put a little mark at this end of my workpiece. So we could just lower the blade until we get down to that mark. And then I'll always turn the blade until you can find the point at the blade's highest point. So that to me is just a little bit low. And then I'll just lower it down just a fraction. Okay, and that looks good there. So that's one way to do it, is just to actually use your workpiece and mark at the 16 millimeter point. The way I like to do it is to actually just use my ruler and put that up against the blade, and then we can see exactly the highest point the blade goes, how far we are away from getting the blade at the perfect height. So that's looking good for me. That's about 16 millimeters, pretty much spot on. So there's two different types of half lap joint we're going to look at. We're going to look at connecting the ends of two pieces together, and we're also going to look at how we can connect one piece to more of the sort of middle of another piece, like so. But first of all, we'll look at how we can connect the ends of two pieces. So when you're cutting half lap joints, using a cross-cut sled on your table saw is really handy. Because we've got this back fence, we can clamp a stop block on, and we know we're going to get exact 90-degree cuts. If you haven't got a cross-cut sled for your table saw, you can click the link that's in the screen now, and you'll see how I made this one. So another really important thing you're going to need when you make these half lap joints is a spacer, which is the exact same width as your saw blade. So I use a piece of sheet metal which is 3 millimeters thick. My blade is 3 millimeters thick, so this works perfectly for me. But you can cut a thin piece of wood which is going to do the same job. As long as it is exactly the same width as your saw blade, it will work fine. So the first thing we want to do is take one of your workpieces and push it up against your blade. So if we push it up against that side of the blade, and then we bring that end down to the back fence of your table saw. Then we're going to bring my stop block into the side of that workpiece which is pushed up against the blade. And I'll clamp my stop block on there. Okay, so with that stop block in place, if we were to make a cut, it's going to be one blade's width too wide in the end of our workpiece here. So in order to offset the width of our blade, we use this spacer that we just talked about. So we'll put the little spacer up against the stop block, and then put our workpiece up against that. Now with our blade set at the correct height, we should be able to make our first cut. So with our first cut made, that should be exactly half the way through our workpiece. What we then need to do is just do multiple passes with the table saw to clear out the end of this workpiece. And there we have the first half of our joint cut. So in order to make the piece that's going to join onto this, we just need to repeat that exact process once again. So we'll put our spacer against the stop block, push our workpiece up against the spacer, and then make our first cut. With that first cut made, then we can clear out the rest of the material towards the end of this workpiece. So now that we've got our two ends cut, these two pieces should slide together nicely. So you can see we've got really nice flush joint all the way round and on top here. So that's looking really good. So that's how to create a half lap joint at the end of two workpieces. So we could just glue them together and that would create a really nice strong joint. So now we're going to look at how we can create a half lap joint more towards the centre of a workpiece. So if we were wanting to join pieces something like that. So for example, if I was wanting to have the top of my lap joint 12 centimeters from this end, so the way to set up your stop block is to measure 12 centimeters from your blade to the edge of your stop block. So now that that stop block is 12 centimeters from the edge of the blade, we can clamp the stop block in place. So now with our stop block in place, we will take a scrap piece of the same thickness as your workpiece, place that up against the stop block, and then place your workpiece up against that, and then make your first cut. Now to get the exact position of your second cut, we'll take that piece away, and we'll use your spacer, the same width as your saw blade, push that up against the stop block, that will offset the width of your blade, and then you make your second cut. So with those two cuts made, all we need to do is use multiple passes with the table saw to clear out the material in between those two cuts. So there we can see we've got our lap joint cut out nicely there. So you can see if we take one of the first pieces we cut earlier on, you see that slot's nice and tight in there and we're flush all the way around the joint. So again, that can be glued and that will become a really nice strong joint. Well, thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video of making these half lap joints, and hopefully that gives you a demonstration of how to use them in your next project. So don't forget to click like if you like this video, and also click subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Thanks very much for watching.